ALEX EALA looked ready to fight until the very last point, but something suddenly went terribly wrong. Her loss left fans shocked, confused, and asking the same question: what really happened? Now, coach Joan Bosch's analysis puts the spotlight on a problem many viewers completely missed. Was it pressure, tactics, fatigue, or a weakness that her opponent successfully exposed? The answer may be far more complicated and far more important than the final score suggests. And once you understand what happened behind the scenes, ALEX EALA's shocking loss starts to look completely different. ALEX EALA has reached a stage in her career where every loss feels bigger than just another defeat. She is no longer simply a young player trying to establish herself on the professional tour. She has already proven that she can challenge elite opponents, survive pressure, produce major upsets, and compete on some of the biggest stages in women's tennis. That is exactly why a disappointing loss can create such a strong reaction among her supporters. Fans have become accustomed to seeing EALA fight back when matches begin to turn against her, so when the comeback does not arrive, the immediate question becomes, what changed? This is where Joan Bosch's perspective becomes especially important. Bosch has been a major figure in EALA's development, working with her through the difficult transition from promising junior to increasingly dangerous professional. His approach has consistently focused on improvement, learning, and helping EALA understand what each match is teaching her. The important thing is that a loss does not automatically mean EALA suddenly became a worse player. Tennis at the highest level is often decided by tiny differences in timing, positioning, decision-making, and confidence. A player can have the same powerful forehand, the same competitive spirit, and the same physical ability, yet still struggle if the opponent successfully changes the rhythm of the match. That is one of the biggest lessons from EALA's difficult defeats. Her opponents have increasingly learned that simply trading shots with her is not always enough. They can change pace, attack specific patterns, force uncomfortable decisions, and make her play one extra ball under pressure. When that happens, the match becomes less about who has the better individual shot and more about who can solve the tactical puzzle first. EALA has shown that she is capable of making those adjustments, but development at this level is rarely linear. Her journey has included breakthrough victories followed by painful setbacks, and those setbacks can become some of the most valuable moments of her career. In fact, Bosch has previously highlighted EALA's ability to learn as one of her defining qualities. That means the real story behind a shocking loss may not be that EALA failed. It may be that the match exposed the next part of her game that must evolve, and that is exactly why Bosch's perspective matters. Instead of simply looking at the score and blaming one bad moment, the deeper analysis asks what the opponent forced EALA to do, where EALA became uncomfortable, and why she could not immediately find the answer. Those details may explain much more than the final score ever could. The biggest mistake fans can make after a tennis loss is looking only at the final score. A scoreline tells you who won, but it does not always explain why the match moved in that direction. In ALEX EALA's case, the deeper tactical story can be found in the moments when her opponent disrupted her preferred rhythm. EALA is at her most dangerous when she can establish control from the baseline, use her left-handed patterns effectively, move her opponent around, and create opportunities to attack. But professional tennis players do not simply allow that to happen. The best opponents identify what makes EALA uncomfortable and then repeatedly test those areas. This is where the tactical battle becomes fascinating. If an opponent takes away EALA's first attacking opportunity, suddenly the second shot becomes more important. If that second shot is also neutralized, EALA can find herself defending instead of dictating. And once a player begins defending too often, confidence can disappear very quickly. That does not mean EALA lacks confidence. It means tennis is a momentum sport where a few points can completely change the emotional balance of a match. Bosch has previously spoken about the importance of EALA continuing to develop and improve, and recent reports have shown how her team approaches difficult opponents as problems that must be solved rather than simply feared. The hidden issue, therefore, may have been less about one technical mistake and more about the inability to regain control quickly enough once the opponent changed the pattern. This is particularly important because EALA has become a player opponents prepare for differently. Earlier in her career, opponents could underestimate her or fail to understand the variety in her game. That luxury is disappearing. Her reputation has changed, her ranking has risen. Her victories over major names have forced the tour to take her seriously. She reached a career-high ranking of number 29 in March 2026, becoming the highest-ranked Filipino player in WTA history. With that success comes a new challenge. Opponents now enter matches with a plan specifically designed for ALEX EALA. That means she must continue developing counter-plans of her own. The most dangerous player is not the one with only one great strategy. It is the player who can recognize when strategy A is no longer working and immediately move to strategy B. That is perhaps the biggest lesson from this loss. EALA does not simply need to hit harder. She needs to become even more unpredictable. She needs to recognize danger earlier, change court position when necessary, vary pace, protect her serve, and avoid allowing the opponent to dictate the emotional rhythm. If Bosch's long-term philosophy is centered around learning, then this loss could become another important lesson. Fans may see disappointment, but the coaching team may see information. And information, when properly used, can become the foundation of the next breakthrough. There is another side to this story that cannot be measured by statistics alone: the mental battle. Tennis is brutally individual. There is nowhere to hide when momentum disappears. No teammate can enter the court to rescue you. No substitution can change the situation, and every important point demands another decision. For a young player experiencing rapidly increasing expectations, that pressure can become enormous. ALEX EALA has already experienced what it feels like to carry the hopes of an entire tennis community. Her historic performances have made her a source of pride for Filipino fans, and every major tournament brings new attention. That attention can be inspiring, but it can also create expectations that become difficult to manage. The challenge is especially complicated because EALA has already shown that she belongs on the biggest stages. She defeated established stars, reached major rounds, and continued climbing the rankings. Her 2026 season has included significant achievements, including a deep Wimbledon run and a breakthrough performance in Washington. When expectations rise, however, a normal loss can suddenly feel like a crisis. That is where the emotional reaction from fans can become misleading. A player can lose one match without losing confidence in herself. A difficult match can hurt without destroying progress. And a tactical weakness exposed today can become a strength tomorrow if the player and coach understand exactly what happened. Bosch has repeatedly emphasized EALA's ability to learn, and that quality may be more valuable than winning every match. Think about what happens during a tight match. One missed opportunity creates frustration. A second missed opportunity creates doubt. Then an opponent holds serve, the crowd becomes louder, and suddenly the player feels as if every point has enormous consequences. At that moment, technique and mentality become connected. A player who normally swings freely may hesitate for half a second. A player who normally attacks may choose the safer shot. A player who normally trusts her instincts may begin thinking about the consequences of losing. Those tiny changes can completely alter a match. This is why the mental explanation behind a loss should not be reduced to saying that a player choked. That is too simple and often unfair. High-level athletes are constantly balancing aggression and control, confidence and caution, emotion and logic. The real challenge is learning how to stay committed to the game plan when the match becomes uncomfortable. EALA has already shown that she can recover from difficult situations. Her comeback victories and ability to compete against top opponents demonstrate that resilience is part of her identity. The next step is making that resilience even more consistent. The goal is not to eliminate pressure. No elite athlete can do that. The goal is to perform intelligently while pressure exists. That may be one of the most important lessons hidden inside this defeat. At first glance, a shocking defeat can look like a setback. But for a player developing as quickly as ALEX EALA, the most painful losses can sometimes become turning points. Every level of her career has demanded something different from her. As a junior, she needed consistency and belief. As she entered professional tennis, she needed physical strength, tactical discipline, and the ability to survive longer matches. As her ranking climbed, she needed to learn how to handle opponents who were no longer surprised by her talent. Now, the challenge is even greater. She has to become the player everyone is preparing to beat. That is a completely different psychological and tactical environment. Her rise has already been remarkable. She became the first Filipino to reach a WTA Tour-level final in 2025, and in 2026 she climbed as high as number 29 in the world. More recently, her Washington run demonstrated just how dangerous she can be, including victories over major opponents before reaching the final. So when she loses, the correct question is not whether her rise was a fluke. The evidence says otherwise. The better question is what separates the current version of the EALA from the version capable of consistently reaching the final stages of the biggest tournaments. That difference could come down to small details. Serve percentages, second serve protection, returning depth, decision-making under pressure, recognizing when an opponent is changing patterns, knowing when to attack and when to reset. These are not glamorous elements, but they are the details that separate talented players from complete players. Bosch's long-term role becomes crucial here because development is not about turning a player into someone completely different. It is about identifying weaknesses without destroying the strengths that made the player successful. EALA's aggression is valuable. Her movement is valuable. Her competitiveness is valuable. Her ability to learn is perhaps even more valuable. The goal is to make those qualities work together more consistently. That is why this defeat could eventually become something positive. If EALA and her team identify exactly where the match escaped her, they can build training around those moments. If the opponent successfully neutralized her first attacking pattern, she can develop a stronger second option. If pressure affected her decision-making, she can recreate those situations in practice. If fatigue became a factor, conditioning and recovery can be adjusted. If the problem was tactical, video analysis can turn the opponent's strategy into a lesson. This is how elite players evolve. They do not pretend losses never happened. They study them, they dissect them, they learn from them, and then they return with answers. That is the part fans should remember. A shocking loss does not necessarily define ALEX EALA. What she does after it may define the next stage of her career. When everything is stripped away, the biggest message surrounding ALEX EALA's loss is not that her career is suddenly in danger. It is that the standard has changed. EALA has reached a level where opponents are studying her carefully, preparing specific tactical plans, and expecting her to fight back. That is a compliment disguised as a challenge. Joan Bosch's role in this process is not simply to celebrate victories or explain defeats after they happen. His job is to help EALA understand what each experience can teach her. Bosch has previously described her as highly coachable and emphasized her ability to learn, while his comments around her development repeatedly point toward improvement rather than short-term panic. That philosophy matters now more than ever. Fans may want an easy explanation for a shocking loss. They may want to blame one mistake, one decision, one physical issue, or one bad moment. But elite tennis rarely works that way. Sometimes the opponent simply executes better. Sometimes the player loses the tactical battle. Sometimes momentum disappears. Sometimes the smallest details decide everything. And sometimes a defeat reveals a weakness that the player did not know was there. That last possibility can be uncomfortable, but it is also incredibly valuable. ALEX EALA is still developing. She is not a finished product, and that should not be seen as a weakness. Her career trajectory shows that she has repeatedly responded to challenges by improving. Her breakthrough results against elite opponents demonstrate that she already possesses the level required to compete with the best. The next challenge is consistency. Can she take what happened in this loss and turn it into a stronger version of herself? Can she identify the moment when the match began slipping away and recognize it earlier next time? Can she change tactics before the opponent establishes complete control? Can she stay emotionally calm when the pressure rises? Those questions matter far more than one disappointing result. And that is why the title surrounding Joan Bosch's analysis is so powerful. The hidden reason behind a loss may not be a dramatic secret or a single shocking revelation. It may be something much deeper. The level of the WTA Tour has changed around ALEX EALA because she has changed. She is now a recognized threat. She is now being studied. She is now expected to win matches that once would have been considered breakthroughs. That pressure is part of becoming an elite player. The defeat hurts, but it also provides a roadmap. If EALA can turn the weaknesses exposed in this match into improvements, then the next chapter could look completely different. And perhaps that is the real reason fans should not panic. The loss may have stunned them today, but the lessons from it could fuel the next great ALEX EALA comeback. Her story has never been about avoiding difficult moments. It has been about learning from them. And if Joan Bosch's philosophy is any indication, this loss may become another step toward the player Eala is ultimately trying to become. If you enjoyed this latest tennis update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe the channel right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.